you considered the messages your outfits send? What do you think your clothes say about you? See, style is about the clothes, but it's not really about the clothes. Every day you make choices about what you're going to wear, but what are you communicating? Welcome to Above and Beyond Style. I'm your host, Maria DiLorenzo, and in 2019, I founded MFD Style, where I provide a unique, intuitive approach to personal styling for those ready to embrace a more meaningful look. With this podcast, I'll uncover key elements of where spirituality, psychology, and style intersect, revealing how you can make intentional wardrobe choices that reflect who you really are. So let me ask you, are you ready to transform into your authentic self? Then it's time. Come with me on this journey, and together we'll take your style above and beyond style. Hey guys, welcome back to Above and Beyond Style. This week we are continuing our conversation about style pitfalls, things that perhaps get in the way of authentic style, or maybe just kind of get us off track a little bit. And today I wanted to talk about the extremes, the maximalist and the minimalist. And then I also want to place us sort of maybe in the middle somewhere around the moderate too. So the 3 M's we're going to talk about today. So if you're imagining a spectrum, kind of on a full spectrum, there are 2 ends, right? There's the maximalist and the minimalist, and the moderate lives in the middle. And I think there are some lessons that can be learned for those of us that might identify with being on either end of the spectrum. And I might make an argument where authentic style, I think, can live somewhere in the middle. And this is not a perfect equation for how this works, but I do think there's something to be said by sometimes when we look at the 2 extremes, it helps us sort of see where some of those behaviors might be getting in the way and might be, again, getting us off track from where we really feel authentically most connected to our clothes and the wardrobe that supports the lifestyle that we want to be leading. So again, I'm not pointing fingers at anybody that's going to be living on either end of the extremes here, but I want to talk about how sometimes if you find yourself oriented toward one of these ends of the spectrum, how it might be confusing or it might be too limiting in some way. So there's a sense of extremism that I think anytime you live on one end or the other, that can sometimes get in the way. And this is not to be a metaphor for some big political, thought process. It's really just to help you sort of see where sometimes when we go to either end, it can really get us off track. So for me, I want to talk about first the minimalist. And we're going to start on that end because I do think that there's been a trend, I think, in society in the last, maybe let's just say the last 10 years. I haven't, like I said, done any hard research or data on this, but it does feel like there have been efforts toward minimalism in the last 10 years to really hone in and get down to the nitty gritty, the real clean, hardcore things that what do we need? What do we use to kind of simplify our life? And I think philosophically, I really can get behind the minimalism kind of thought process because it creates a sense of clarity around what do we really need. And I think for anybody that might be living in the United States, we tend to err on the other side of the spectrum where we have way more than we need. We have so much clutter in our homes, right? And our wardrobes are just one of the many different elements that sort of take a hit when we become, overburdened by so many things. So minimalism, I think really there's something to it. And I want to really honor kind of the philosophy and the thought process behind it. But what I've noticed sometimes, and if this resonates for you, I'm curious, love to hear your feedback. But I often follow a lot of different people on Instagram who really practice a minimalist lifestyle. And I notice, again, it's going to impact all aspects of their lives, from how many kitchen appliances they have to how many pairs of jeans they have in their wardrobe. But I really want to just talk about the process that I often watch around minimalism, around clothing, and where I think, again, sometimes this is where it might get us off track a little bit. And I want to see if this resonates for any of you. So for the minimalist, what I'm noticing is there's a certain level of scrutiny that I think is necessary to be able to get to the things that you really need and want. But I sometimes find that in that level of scrutiny to evaluate what you want to own, I also feel like there's some overwhelm in it too. And let me explain what I mean by that. So while I really do believe that the goal is to simplify in the long run, right? To have fewer options so that getting dressed can be simpler. There's almost like a uniform or a real classic kind of standard capsule wardrobe, if you will, that will allow you to get dressed pretty efficiently. But what I'm noticing is when people are in the process of trying to figure out whether or not an item should stay or go, or if they should buy something, I find sometimes that process to feel a bit exhaustive, because making these singular decisions sometimes feels really heavy. Like there's a lot that goes into whether or not something can come in or go out of a wardrobe. And I think what is striking me about that, and where I do think it can sometimes get us off track from authentic style, is it feels sometimes like it can be too restrictive, as if there's more focus on following an internal set of rules versus just following what may actually delight you to wear, right? And so I think this is partially why when I'm working with clients, especially around capsule wardrobes, for example, it's something that I try not to offer like a rule around the certain number of items that need to be in a wardrobe. A lot of people come to me with, I want to build a capsule. How many things should I own? And it's like, well, there's not a perfect number that I can give you that's going to be, exactly right for your lifestyle and the things that you want to do. So I never come with, there should be 50 or there should be 100 or any kind of like definitive figure. And I think that's sometimes what I notice with people that are, again, on this extreme end of minimalism. There feels like there's more commitment to the rule, to following the rule and making sure that we only take in a certain number, we have a certain item in our wardrobe, versus just kind of intuitively connecting within and deciding about what really is right for their lifestyle or the things that they want to own and support their life. So do you see how sometimes that can get in the way? It can kind of tie our hands a little bit and doesn't allow that fullest expression of ourselves. And I mean, don't get me wrong, I know plenty of minimalists who really are living their authentic life in their style through these life choices. So this is about folks that are kind of going to the real hard end of the extreme of this spectrum that I think sometimes can get in the way. Now, let's bounce over to the other side where the maximalist lives. This is the person that I think has every single option of every single item and wardrobe, clothing, piece of apparel that you can imagine for every circumstance under the sun. So maybe you are one of these people, or maybe you know one of these people. But what I'm finding is for folks that live in this like maximalist space, there's a couple things that come up that can be difficult and, again, can confuse or get in the way with authentic style. And I think one of the things I notice the most when I'm confronted by someone who has kind of a maximalist thought process around their clothing is there's overwhelm, because there's so much at play there and there are so many options. And in some ways they can't find things, or they might forget that they even own something at all. So it does feel like it can be too much for them. I often see this come up when I'm helping a client do some packing. This is one of the services that I offer to my clients. And when I've worked with a client who is sort of this maximalist mentality, packing can be a real project for them, because They literally want to bring everything for every scenario and every type of circumstance that could possibly happen for their trip or for where they're going. And so it can feel a bit overwhelming. And I think this sense of so many options and having a closet, dressers, every kind of nook and cranny in your wardrobe that can hold clothing is like bursting at the seams with that variety. And what I find then is that style can kind of get lost because it's kind of like the chameleon who changes based on every external circumstance. And to me, I always wonder about like, is that truly authentic that you're always kind of ready for the exact perfect thing that's going to be happening in your life so that you have the exact perfect outfit? Does feel like that maximalist mentality sometimes creates so much volume and so much variety that there is a sense of the authenticity of the style can get lost in that. So you can see sort of on these two ends of the spectrum, there can be problems or some complications that I think can kind of get us off track. And my goal, I really feel like, is that there's somewhere in the middle, that moderate, that where I'm hoping, I think authentic style lives. And it's not a perfect equation, and I really hope I'm not representing this as simple as, it's not on the one end or the other, it's really in the middle. But it does feel like authentic style is more balanced. It supports a varied lifestyle, but it doesn't get in the way from living life, right? So there's not so many options that you can't make a decision, or you're not so restricted by so few items that you don't have the options to live the lifestyle that you are. So there is a nice sense of balance and kind of in the middle that allows for the options to exist, and I think often provides clarity on what feels best to wear on any given day. So I think the magic question for me as I'm thinking about the minimalist, the maximalist, and the moderate, how do you get to be in this moderate space? Like, what are the things that we need to do or just orient ourselves toward that will help us practice more of this moderate, authentic style? And these are not surefire, techniques or strategies, but I do think quite a few of these will help us get closer. And some of them might engage me or someone like me as a wardrobe consultant and someone who supports people in this process. And some of it might just be your own undertaking. So know that there's kind of, again, a balance between those two things. So let me begin with, how do you get to be the moderate? I will argue till the cows come home that a regular closet edit will always get you a little bit closer. That you are really being very careful and clear about the items that are not being worn or do not support your lifestyle, that those should go. They don't belong, right? And getting and sort of weeding out, or pruning, as sometimes I like to say, really helps you get to that clarity much quicker. And I think when you edit, I want you to kind of imagine, think about how you feel when your house is clean, right? Like all the beds are made, the floors are vacuumed, it's been dusted, the dishes are put away, there's fresh flowers on the countertop, the bathroom is, the sink and the mirror all wiped clean, right? You know that feeling. It's like a breath of fresh air. And that to me is what a closet edit can feel like for you, and it can elicit those same types of feelings of like, okay, I got this. I can handle whatever's coming at me because my circumstances and my, external surroundings are supporting a lifestyle of clarity. And I think that same thing can happen within your closet or your wardrobe. Because the other piece of an edit that I think is really helpful to get us more towards this moderate behavior is that your wardrobe can become and feel purposeful. When you do the edit and we get down to these pieces that are really of you, that really speak to your style, that you really love to wear, that they're all the right colors and all the right fabrics and fit and all the things that just sort of feel like your favorites, right? And if you've ever worked with me, you know I have a little system or process to help us identify our favorites. And my goal is always to help people get to a place where their entire wardrobe feels like they've got all favorites. Like the things that are kind of just okay, are not quite there, don't even really like belong anymore. And I think when you get to that kind of clarity about your wardrobe feeling purposeful, you have pieces for the current season to wear that you literally could put on your body tomorrow. So it's like, boom, let me go into my closet, let me get dressed for the day, and here I am. I have like all these great options for me to wear, and they feel connected. They are very much reflective of the lifestyle that you're leading. And in turn, I would argue that they provide you with energy and that kind of lift that you might want to feel in your daily life. And I really believe that the edit gets you closer to feeling like your wardrobe can give you that same kind of purpose and meaning to like go on with your day. Get into the things that you need to conquer and manage and do to like live your best life. These clothes are there to support you. They will always be there as that tool. I will hearken back to an earlier episode from season 1 around your wardrobe can be a tool for support. I adamantly believe that our wardrobe, when it has this kind of purpose, it really does help us lead that best life. So the regular closet edit is probably like one of the most important things that I think help us get to this moderate space. A couple other things that came to mind when I was thinking about this. The other thing I would say, and I talked about this in an earlier episode around the what if scenario in this season, it's about being really honest with yourself. And this goes hand in hand with the closet edit. That to make these choices about what stays and what goes, there has to be clarity and honesty. And only you can really bring that to the experiment, because I can give you options and give you scenarios and ask you questions to help you get to the clarity, but the honesty lives with yourself. So if you aren't willing to be honest about your lifestyle or the things that you really like or don't like, the process is going to feel confusing. You're not going to be able to get to a place of clarity in the same way that I think if honesty is your like guidepost, the thing that you really hold to about like, is this something that I really want and need? Will I really wear this? Do I even like it enough? Right? Like a lot of the questions that we're sorting through in this process helps you get to that space. And I think that honesty is probably one of the most important characteristics to have and to really like hold close to you when you're trying to live in this moderate space. And that also goes hand in hand with embracing your body as it is. I could speak about this till I'm blue in the face, that I confront and talk with a lot of people who are struggling with their shape, size, proportions of their bodies, and how that's evolved or changed or different from maybe what it once was, or you had it and you've now lost it. You know, there's a lot of different scenarios around our bodies. And I really feel like a key element to getting closer to this moderate space is about just embracing your body as it is. There's all sorts of imperfections in the human experience. And of course, our bodies are one of those things too. So I think being able to just really embrace the truth and the honesty of our bodies helps us get to that place of moderation much quicker, much easier, and with a lot less agony and angst about where we maybe aren't any longer, or maybe we won't ever be again. Who knows? But the truth of that feels like, let's just learn to love ourselves. And then if you listen to my podcast regularly, you know I often sign off with this, like, love ourselves, and then let's love ourselves some more, because there's more to be had around really embracing your body and who we are. The next thing I would say about style overall and getting to this moderate space is about can we just all learn to not take styles so seriously? Like, there's so much serious stuff in the world that we have to manage on any given day for any different reason. Style to me should feel fun. It should feel like a fun method of self-expression. And in a day where you're probably making a lot of not fun decisions or having to manage perhaps a lot of not fun things, why wouldn't you give yourself the gift of letting style be in this space of not overwhelm or not too restrictive, and allowing yourself this kind of moderation where it can feel easier and it can feel a bit more fun. And that to me is where style should be a bit effortless. There should be ease in making wardrobe decisions. And there should be that sense of like, boom, 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 I got this. I'm ready for my day. And I think that helps us get to that place of moderation a bit simpler when we give ourselves the permission to allow it to be a bit more effortless. And lastly, for me, how do you get to be in this place of moderation? I think it really has to do with try not to look outside of yourself for style solutions. I think at the end of the day, when we are, again, in this maximalist versus the minimalist, and we're looking at these two extremes, to me, it feels like somewhere in the midst of all that, we're getting lost about what do you want to wear or feel good in. And I think when we look outside of ourselves, we can get confused or overwhelmed or too connected to restrictions or rules that it doesn't allow for that authentic style or that authentic self to kind of rise to the surface. Because the moderate space for me in authentic style does feel a bit more like intuitive and connected. And it's almost like I equate it with sort of like living in your own little world and it being a really happy, lovely place to be. I'm not suggesting to be disconnected from world or the life that you lead, but there's a sense of like, I'm kind of in this bubble of authenticity within myself, and it's safe and it's fun and it's life-giving and it's purposeful. And I'm not trying to make style be like the solution to all the world's problems. I'm just reminding you that style and that moderation kind of in the middle of the spectrum is the sweet spot where we can live and enjoy our lives in the clothes that we're wearing and know that the things that get us off track can only be temporary, right? We can always get off track for a moment and then come back to center. Or this feels like a great metaphor for life, right? That we're all sorts of, there may be misalignment with the things that are happening. You get a flat tire, there's problems at work, the red sock got into the whitewash, so now everything's pink, right? Like there's all sorts of random things that happen that perhaps make our life feel more complex or hard. And to me, I feel like authentic style can be one of those things that just helps bring us back to alignment, to who we are, to what we're about, to how we want to live our lives, and to show up and do those things, however hard or complex or simple they may be. And I think sometimes when we don't spend enough time really looking at the extremes, I think that's where the extremes can be informative. If we look at the extremes, that helps us realize like, yeah, maybe I'm going too far on one end or the other. And authenticity feels like it's in that centered balance place. So this is my little encouragement to you about if you find yourself on one end or the other of your own style journey, and there's not that sort of effortless, balanced, fun, loving, self-loving place where you find yourself, well, first of all, give yourself a break because we're human and imperfect, but also know that you can always come back to center at any moment and any time. And our style can be one of those things that can help bring us there, perhaps a little bit easier, perhaps with a little bit of joy and a little bit of fun. And you and I can go out and do all the things that we're meant to do in this lifetime and enjoy it and know that our clothes are along for the ride with us. So that's this week's episode, you guys. I hope you've enjoyed it. I am so grateful that you're here and listening, and I look forward to connecting with you again soon. Thanks so much for listening today. If you enjoyed what you've heard, I would appreciate you taking the time to leave a review on the podcasting platform you're using and share this episode with others who you think might really enjoy these conversations about personal style. For more information all about MFD Style services, you can find me on the web at mfdstyle.com, on Instagram at mfd_style, where I post almost 5 days a week, or send me an email at maria@mfdstyle.com. I also have a weekly email I send to subscribers, so I will include the link to that sign up in the show notes. So until next time, friends, remember to love yourself and then love yourself some more.